So welcome to episode 17 in the webinar and expert panel series from Space Store. We've got the numbers still going up and we'll start to do some introductions. So today's session is another session taking advantage of the positives of the crazy situation, the pandemic globally, and the space where we've been reviewing workplace. And we've had more time for some activities and less opportunity for some of the usual activities, the travel and the meetings. And we're examining today the changing workplace. Are we looking at a seismic shift, or is it an incremental advance along the continuum of workplace and office improvement? Personally, I believe we've got to a high point by Q1 of 2020. And are we going to see a seismic shift from there is the discussion point today. And thanks everybody for joining. Through the webinar, do use the Q&A box to put your questions in. We've got a very stellar panel today and we'll introduce them shortly. I'm Nick Baxter from Space Store in the UK, MD in the UK region, and work in the strategy and marketing area of the business, as well as the governance functions. And if we move over and introduce Kim Frahm, give us a quick background, Kim, of what you do and what you have done.
Sure, thank you. And nice to be with you all this morning or afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. I apologize, I'm not looking at you all in person. I am unfortunately at the mercy of my internet provider right now, and I'm having the struggle of work from home. So I'm joining you by phone, at least until I can reboot here. But again, Kim Frahm, I am part of Ernst & Young's construction and real estate advisory practice based in New York. I have been with the team for the last 15 years, and really our purpose there is to help organizations think about the way in which we use our corporate real estate spaces, make them more efficient, less costly, deploy the tools and technologies that we all need to better understand our buildings and the people in them. Obviously, over the last 7 or 8 months or so, we've shifted a bit in our thinking and have done a bunch of research and had a number of discussions with clients around how they're thinking about their real estate portfolios and the considerations that they're taking as they kind of think about the return in a multi-phased approach, both from a wave one approach where the focus has been on returning workers safely, and then the wave two approach where they're starting to challenge and transform the way work is done, how work is done, why they're returning to the office, and manage all of the implications associated with that thinking. So it's been a really dynamic time, a very exciting time for me personally, and really interested in participating in the session today and continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Kim. And we're very sympathetic with your technical issues. We've all had them through this time, the last 6-7 months, and they always strike at the worst possible moment. But really appreciate you joining, and we'll make plenty of airtime for you as we go through. And Stefan, if we move on and hear where you've been and what you've done.
Yes, please. Hi, my name is Stefan from Evolution Design. We are an architectural and workplace design studio. We're based in Zurich, Switzerland, and have also a little office in London. We started workplace design roughly a bit more than 10 years ago, actually, with Google. And at the time, we had really no clue about workplaces. And that's why we very early on realized we need to think about the users very much and start there. And from there, we just developed really very much a user-centered design approach. And I think bringing it back to today, today is an amazing time to really look again what actually has changed, what has changed for the user, how has it impacted them this time, and what could that possibly mean on the positive side, on the negative side, and how can we take this into the future and into the new future workplace. And I think it's going to be great discussion to have exactly about that topic, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we especially brought Stefan on board because of that pivotal moment when Google, with evolution design's assistance and advice, Google took some of their workplaces kind of crazy for the first time, very homely and relaxed, and to see that as a bit of a pivotal point around 10 years ago. So I thought it was very relevant to this question today. Are we at another major pivotal point? So I think you're very well qualified, and appreciate your time on the panel, Stefan. And very glad to welcome Wong. Give us your long career history and what you're doing today, Aaron.
I'm Wong. Thank you. I'm Wong. I'm with IA. I'm out of the San Francisco office, and IA is a global design firm, and we have a very diverse practice, but we do are really proud of our focus, which is designing workplace environments. I have been designing in corporate interiors for over 30 years, and where we are now is an incredible scenario for us as a practice and how we look at the working environment. What Kim had said, and obviously what Stefan has said, is the conversation that we have been having with with our clients for literally the last 6 months. And at this point, we are really quite we have our fingers to the pulse as to where we think this is going, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
And we're very happy. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And just to round off the introductions, co-hosting this with me is Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and thanks too to the panelists. Good to have them on board, Aaron and Stefan and Kim. So yeah, my name's Alex Harvey, VP Sales with Space Store, and I think very similarly to what Aaron was saying, we're hearing a lot of questions and discussions with our clients, and many clients really thinking deeply around the purpose of the workplace in the very first instance. You know, just really refining and defining and distilling the thoughts around why does the workplace exist, and how can we maximize the impact and the benefit of that on our people. So we're seeing a lot of our clients are really taking this time to step back and review and think hard around the workplace, and very excited to hear the discussions that we're having today to build on that.
So we'll kick off. Welcome to all those who have joined in the last few minutes. Good numbers, which is superb. We welcome everybody to Space Store's discussion today over incremental shift or seismic shift in the workplace. What's really going on? There's a lot of excited journalism saying nothing's ever going to be the same again. And personally, I don't believe that. Humanity has a way of trying to improve its position and also trying to revert to normal. That normal probably won't be the same again. But let's get what's front of mind with all our valued panelists. And again, we just ask everybody to participate, send in your questions on the Q&A box. We'll try and answer as many of those as we can. And if time dictates, we'll group them together into similar question types. So if we come back to Kim, what do you think are the big standouts, Kim, in this question, incremental or seismic change?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to leverage, the thinking that came out of a survey that we recently did. EY performed a survey in the June-July timeframe, and it went out to a little over 3,600 employees and 700 employers, and data was collected, I guess, from the US, UK, and Germany. And from that assessment, there were really 7 primary areas of major resets in the work experience. But real estate stood out as one of the largest. And the real estate footprint in terms of how organizations are thinking about their space and how they're using it and collaboration. That study told us that 74% of employers are planning moderate to seismic changes within their portfolio. And that just tells me that, you know, we're moving quickly, and those that aren't considering changes may be left behind. This is clearly a major area, and things are changing rapidly. And then complementary to that real estate discussion, just to highlight quickly, the other areas that were flagged as major seismic shifts were business travel and mobility, no surprise there, learning and culture, workforce planning and analytics, tax and regulatory compliance, where people are sitting, remote work and technology, so all the collaborative tools and enablers that we use to enable our workforce, and then finally flexibility and well-being policies, just to round those out. But I just, given kind of that 74% of, you know, moderate to extensive changes and strategies associated with real estate, I think we're on the part of the continuum where this is more seismic than not.
Yeah, big number. And was that weighted among those different business units? Did that vary by the type of activity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think the data was cut in the way to a business unit, but it was cut across functions and industries. And we surveyed banking, healthcare, insurance, professional services, retail, technology, and then a collective other category. And really, our research has told us that it's there's some variation in the numbers, but overall, it was a pretty consistent response. And you know, again, most organizations at this point are thinking about kind of revolutionary changes in these 7 key components.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that great starter. Stefan, if we move across and get some thoughts from Zurich.
Yes, I think certainly seismic things are happening. And the first thing I think one has to realize, there was actually a seismic revelation. And the seismic revelation was that, you know, people wanted for years to work actually more from home, but very often we're told that it's not so practical, doesn't work for the team, it's not ideal for the work they have to do, and maybe a day and a half, but please not more. So suddenly everybody has been forced offsite. And what we have realized is that for most companies, for most departments, and for most professions, this has worked amazingly well. So really the revelation is, it hasn't been true what we've been told, that it's not working. It is working. And hopefully it's going to save us the next 10 years of discussions about it. And I think that's very important to realize. So we just have realized things are working in a way that nobody could imagine before. And even more, the surveys we make and the surveys we read as well are showing the same thing. People tell us they have actually been very effective in working from home. Their team has been very effective, even more effective than actually from the office. They feel more motivated than when they were back in the office. And interesting enough, their leaders, the managers, even confirmed that. So the bad news here is that for Aaron and me, it's like, what the hell have we been doing? And everybody's telling us actually working from home is much better and much more effective than working from the office. But going back from that to what do we see now our companies do? Is there a seismic shift in behavior in the development? I think we can see 2 directions. Just to point out this roughly, one direction is what we call the rubber band approach, which means everybody has been forced out. That was quite a stretch. Let's now rethink that. Let's bring people in again. Let's organize it. Let's put a framework around it. Let's think how we can do it. And of course, what we're saying here is that the people we just realized, which have misjudged the situation, what works and what doesn't work, are now trying to organize the new order. And I'm not quite sure if that is going to be seismic at the end, or actually the rubber band will just be pulled back more and more, and it's just going to be incremental. as a high likelihood there. But then we see the other clients which realize, oh, what is our learning here? Our learning is we misjudged this. We can totally differently look at it. And what we recommend people is to look at it again from a user-centered design point, that we actually say, let's now really go and listen. What has worked well for people? What has not worked well for people? And how can we maintain the things which were good and people loved about working from home, but how can we improve those things and those elements post-COVID, which people always said they missed and that wasn't good at home. And I think those companies which look at it from a fresh point of view, I think they have a great chance that indeed it will be quite a seismic change in the way they will operate in the future.
Very, very stimulating of thought that. Do you think that the top management, when the quarterly and the half-year reports come through, everybody would still say it's been effective, it's been efficient and productive?
I don't see a reason why not. If I mean, what we realize, of course, is number one, nobody wants to work from home all the time. The data shows that clearly. People actually say, we would love to come back, we miss people, we miss interaction, is easier in the office. And in average, and actually that's another interesting finding I found, I was really surprised that all the surveys come out with the same results. They show that people in generally at the moment say they probably would like to split the time 50-50, working off-site, working on-site. And I was surprised on that because I thought there might be big differentiations to industries. And that made me think maybe this kind of freedom to organize yourself is indeed a basic human need. And to actually give people that empowerment actually creates a lot of satisfaction, a lot of motivation, and a lot of well-being, that people have more control of their lives. So, and that's why I think we don't need to worry about it too much. Because people want to come back, and ideally they come back to better office, but they also very clearly can see what works better from offsite. And I think we can trust that their team, and also their leadership have a good feeling of that. And I think that clearly will not be detrimental to the figures. I think if the figures are not that great, I think there might be many other reasons right now in the current economic climate, but I don't think it will be due to the motivation and the work of people.
Yeah, and it's a really good distinction you make, that work from home actually for most people's preferences, and I agree, I've seen it in lots and lots of surveys and studies, mostly the preference is 40, 50, 60% of the time. So when we say work from home, we're really saying work half from home.
Exactly.
In reality. And Aaron?
Well, except for now, we're not working half from home. So the seismic shift is forced at the moment, and that is we're all, at least I can speak for the San Francisco Bay Area, are working from home. I think the need to want to go back to the office is there. As humans, we're very social. I think we were talking about this earlier yesterday. Unfortunately, that's why we have these super spreader events, because people can't help but be social, and that's part of us as humans, to want to connect with others. And I know myself, I definitely enjoy being with my colleagues for work and discussion, and I miss that quite a bit. This sort of works for me with being able to share conversations on Zoom, but it's not the same thing. I think that's a physical seismic shift where we're at home working, and it works fairly well. We had talked about having to be physically in the office for some things that we have to do. I think the other seismic shift are companies that have traditionally thought about, never really considered a great deal of their staff, their employees working from home any given time. And the shift there is corporations now thinking really hard about that realization that returning back to the workforce will be a version of some work, a great deal working remotely as well as working from home. And that's the shift for many companies thinking about that possibility. The incremental part of that is what do they do? How do they do that? I don't think they're going to make a radical decision at the moment. At this point, everybody's seismically, radically thinking about that realization, although there's not a lot of examples of actually making that move yet. And what does that office look like when you go back to the office? I think there's two types of thoughts here. One is going back to an existing facility and what I need to do with that. The other thought, which is actually more compelling, is building a new facility now. Because now I have an opportunity to do something different from what I have now. And as I mentioned earlier about, that workplace, like what does it do for me? Do I just need amenities? Is it the student union type environment, or is it, does it lack less focus work? And those are the questions I think that many of our clients are asking us to research and look into.
I love your viewpoints, Aaron, and great points from Stefan as well. I'm just thinking that's very similar to some things we've heard with some of the clients that I've been working with around. I've just been reflecting this week on a quote someone posted on LinkedIn going back to 2012, Marissa Mayer, the CEO of Yahoo then, I think her comment was, people are more productive when they're on their own, but they're more innovative and creative when they're together, which I think I can feel that, when you're on your own, you can actually just get head down and just get your stuff done. But there is that sense of working with your team, the culture of the organization, and sometimes the ability to brainstorm and be creative doesn't happen when you're put in a room and told to be creative and you must brainstorm. You've got an hour to do it, please brainstorm. It comes out in those in-between moments, and maybe that's when we are the most creative, is those in-between moments when you're sitting near someone and you just have a chat across the desk, or you bump into them at the coffee point or wherever the stereotypical meeting place is.
I agree. I personally, I look for feedback on an idea, and I need that. I sort of need that immediately. And if I don't get it, I kind of go, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, or maybe I thought it was really a great idea, but it wasn't a good idea. So I think definitely that immediate response is for me very effective.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in there if I can. It's an interesting kind of predicament, because I actually 100% agree that the office needs to be designed for collaboration going forward, because we have proven that work from home is perfectly feasible for that heads down work. But it's hard to be innovative. It's challenging to bring fresh creative ideas if you don't feel safe, right? It kind of goes back to Maslow's hierarchy. You need that structural safety component so that your childcare needs are met, the health and safety considerations are addressed, flexibility and burnout are not factors, so that you're able to re-enter the office in a way that allows you to generate those ideas. And I'm not sure we figured out the out of office stuff quite yet in order to return our entire populations yet in a way that gets us there. So I think we're still working on that, and I think a number of our clients are asking those types of questions. How do we solve for the outside the office stuff so that our inside the office stuff is as productive as possible? Yeah,
that's a really good point, because we had talked about this earlier yesterday about the differences between an urban work setting where people are using mass transit or not using mass transit because they don't feel safe to get to work, versus a suburban scenario where you're driving in your safe car and getting to the office in that sense. So I think those are two dramatically different experiences, and one seems much safer than the other. So I think that's a really good point.
The question is a little bit for us, what I'm asking is, do we really need to find a framework around it, or can we just not say, actually, we invite people back who want to come back, who can come back safely, who feel safe, At the moment, post-COVID, it's the same thing, actually. We invite people back anytime to come and do the things they feel they benefit from being in the office, and we want to give them an environment which really supports them in that. But for those times where they feel actually from home, it just works much better for me for whatever reasons, we just let them get on with it. And I see a great danger or a tendency that one tries to organize that minimum day at home, maximum days at home. And actually, I feel that's the end of that amazing empowerment we've given to people. And we need to be super careful exactly not to do that and try to keep that freedom. And we had workshops with many groups, and they keep telling us they're all afraid that the trust they have been given to organize themselves and the performance they have given back to prove they can do it is going to be taken away from them. And I think we could lose so much by doing that. So I think this balance of where do I do what? I mean, who can better say than the person itself? I don't think we need to organize it for them. We just need to be ready when they come, that they have the tools they need in the space where we offer it to them. That's the office.
And you feel strongly, I believe, Stefan, that sense of agency or self-determination is the big need that's now being met.
Well, that's clearly what we can feel, you know, when we look at the open questions we have in our surveys. I know people write there, it's just amazing how much better they feel. And even, you know, somebody said to me, even though, you know, I have as much to do at home, just those in-between moments where I can self-determine what I will do, and I have a moment I can just sit down and close my eyes or lie down on the couch for 2 minutes, makes such a huge difference to their own well-being. And I think we just need to accept that's what it is to them. And I think it's just amazing to see indeed how much motivation and appreciation also you can get from people by just giving them that little freedom to decide themselves. And the question is indeed, apart from the legal requirements and so on, which there's plenty, do we do more? Do we need to do more than what we legally are obliged to do? And my hypothesis would be at the moment, I don't think so. I don't think we should. I think we should run with it. And we have actually some clients, they are exactly now setting that framework. And the phrase we are suggesting to them is actually to say, as long as the person, their team, actually can self-organize them successfully, can meet the goals and criteria which are set, they can get on with it. And that's how we measure it. So if they're successful, let them run. If not, then we will step in and we'll try to see what we need to regulate. And I think that's, one should give this a go. One should give it a chance to try out if that's not working actually for most people.
I think you've kind of half answered a question that's just come in the Q&A box, Stefan, from Amelia Moore, saying how do we bring back the introverts that love being at home, but we would like to bring them back into the office? So we're really flipping that the other way around and saying, make it so they want to come into the office for whatever purpose it is, whether it's working with the team or the environment or maybe the amenities.
Absolutely. I think there is a chance, of course, that some people like to be away, but then, you know, it's the power of the team. It's much better. The team says, listen, come to the office. We do a great workshop together. We have the great tools here. It's much more efficient. And if that is true, it will happen. If the management thinks, well, we need to have an office day where you all come in and then you are supposed to communicate with each other, that just doesn't make sense at all, because then I think like, but today actually I don't need it. I would need it tomorrow maybe. So you know, let's not get management involved. Let's say it that way. Let's get people in power as long as they can fulfill it and prove they can do it. And of course, management is involved. But you know, let's give them a chance because they've proven they can do it and they're successful. And actually, they want to come back anyway. So we don't need to worry about it that we never see our staff anymore. It's not going to happen.
Because people want that human connection anyway.
Exactly. I mean, that's what they say in all the surveys. What do they miss most? Is their colleagues, is the interaction, is the socializing, is the working together. So we know it. So nobody needs to worry. I think it's more a problem for Kim, which actually some clients think they can maybe get rid of lots of square feet, but maybe they can't actually because people want to come back.
Yeah.
They do want to come back.
Kim, just before you answer that question, I've got a quick question from a member of the audience saying the survey you referenced right at the very beginning, is that published and publicly available? Could we signpost that for the audience?
Let me go back and check, and I will funnel it through you all if I can do so, if that's all right.
Perfect, thanks.
Superb. And just in connection with what we're saying right now, a good question coming from Andrea. If people want to only show up to the office for collaboration and socializing, what are the main spaces and things that we'll keep and that we'll remove? A very on-point question, I think. What should we include in new spaces as they get designed? I reckon Aaron's going to have some ideas.
I think many of the elements in the workplace exist already for that question. I think you're still going to look at a mix of work settings. We're calling them work points now because we think that a work space is not just a desk, right? And many of you as furniture providers, as an example, have a wide range of work points, as I call them, where you can do focus work as well as collaborate with your team members. Mm-hmm. I like the flexibility of some pieces that allow some more focus work, some privacy, and then different orientation or some modification to it then allows it to be collaboration and or focus work. So I think the ability to have pieces that are flexible and allow somebody to make those modifications without a complex facilities process is ideal from what we're hearing and what we've seen. Yes. The pieces are there now. You just have to look at them a little bit differently.
Is it that the emphasis becomes a bit different to before? The different settings, the multiplicity of settings, the choice. That's another need, isn't it? That's I think come to the fore is choice.
Yes.
It's kind of the counterpart to that empowerment or agency, I suppose, is that we provide choice for alone work, collaborative work, quiet space. It seems to me there's a better recognition now than ever of not only the type of task, but the type of person or the personal preference.
Yeah, I mean, it's
comments around that.
Well, work is work, and when I look at how I work here at home, I'm not always sitting in this chair working. I probably have 3 or 4 places in the house that, and maybe in the same place, same room for that matter, one of them is, but where I can move around with my laptop and work. And that's no different from this new work environment that we're imagining, that I have a place that I want to really focus, and I have a place where I want to sit and maybe read material. I might sit on a soft seating to do that. I might actually sit outside for an hour or 2 doing another task. So I feel like that is the home experience is really not that different from the office environment, because work is work. It doesn't really change that much. If you have the choice to move about, then you're going to take advantage of it.
I think that's an important point, Aaron, because I think what we have to realize is also a work environment with choices, with adequate choices, with good equipment is actually not the standard for most people. And what we see again and again is exactly that. Of course, people which work, let's say, in a less suitable work environment, with less choices, less opportunities to focus and concentrate, of course, they have found home office, working from home, quite helpful because you can finally concentrate. So I think a part of bringing people back is, of course, also generally just to realize that the office before maybe wasn't up to scratch in the first place. And that's why people rather stay at home and felt that they were more efficient at home. And we can see that actually with some clients where we have designed office already now after the lockdown. Nearly too many people wanted to come back because clearly they felt they had the better environment to work there compared to home. Where with environments which we are currently working on, trying to improve them, the surveys clearly show that people feel at home is amazingly much better. So there's hope from Aaron and me that actually well-designed workspace indeed does work quite well for people. And that's why I think in balance, if you think about it, there will be a shift in what people will do in the office, but the longer they come back to the office, the less the shift will be, because you also need to concentrate, you also need to do desk work. And if I'm in the office 3 days a week, then most likely I also spend quite a bit of time on my desk. I can't just do collaboration. I also have work to do. And if I only am in the office 1 day, then most likely I will focus exactly on those tasks. And for those tasks, you really want to have the right spaces that it's worthwhile coming in.
What would you say?
Yeah, and maybe just...
Yeah, go on. I was just thinking, can you speak to EY's spaces in this context?
Yeah, well, I was just going to add there that I think it's a perfect segue to some of the other conversations we're having right now with clients. Is all about the technology and the tools to better understand the space and how it's being used. A lot of the asks coming at us right now are either to kind of understand the employee population that may be returning, so we can strategize around the space that could be required that, you know, to enable those employees as they return. But it's also, you know, thinking about the workplace differently in the way that we have maybe traditionally used it. And in order to get better intelligence around that space, and in order to understand where employees are sitting on a more regular basis, for those organizations that haven't yet deployed a reservation tool or some type of sensor technology, you know, there's a lot of interest in those at the moment, just to, again, get the data around how current space is being deployed to inform better design decisions. Also to kind of interact with some safety measures. You know, with a number of the tools are linking to contact tracing. And then finally, you know, there's a kind of a revolution in the way the tools are being thought of right now in terms of whether or not it's entirely employee preference when they come into the building and then they identify a location to go sit, and they use a system to help them think through that and what might be available, but using the tools to push information as well to employees. So thinking about or deploying AI in a way that makes the tools smarter and suggests locations for the employee based on a number of factors. So really kind of trying to challenge the existing technology, either that an organization already has, or bringing that on board to kind of help those space decisions along. Because clearly we're thinking about the design, we're thinking about the space, not from a 6-month time frame, but we're trying to make it flexible enough, just like the furniture, to last, you know, the employee or last the employer, you know, long enough that, you know, they can make the decision around whether or not they stay in that space when leases come due. And some of those aren't immediate. So, you know, it's really trying to kind of push it from all angles. So having lots of technology conversations as well.
I can only support that. I think in a new work environment where people have more freedom, where also maybe you will reduce space eventually, because indeed people will spend more time mobile working. I think you need technology. You need to empower people which are able to see what's going on, what's available, what's happening, where are the entities, where is it free. I think you definitely need that for the future if you want to be successful. Because, you know, when I'm at home, I know at least the kids are in the living room. I'm not going there, you know, I can't work there. And I don't want to go to the office and walk to, you know, a coffee hub and see it's full of people celebrating a birthday and then walk back, because then I'd rather be at home where I have that information available. So really, I need to make that information available at work as well. So I think any successful workplace in the future will need that kind of technology Kim was just describing.
Yeah.
We're seeing some interesting questions coming in, just slightly changing the topic, but the concept of the hybrid of that kind of work from home, work from the office, maybe work from somewhere else. Interesting question from Louise, who's asking about the challenges and opportunities of, you know, that mix of some of the team being in some of the time, and how are we going to keep the teams connected and engaged with one another? You know, the chance of crossing paths with the right people, both being in the workplace at the same time. You got some thoughts on that, Aaron?
I think technology is going to be a big key to that. We're working with a client right now where they historically have done lots of training, and the training is twofold. One is new employees, where they were adamant that they had to actually come in to the facility to be trained, and historically existing employees that were wanting to move up in the company had this kind of extensive training as well. Now that we're studying them going back into the office, the question was, do you need all these training spaces? Because my question was, what are you guys doing now that you're all working from home? And the conversation was, the response was, for new employees, it doesn't work very well because they don't know the culture very well. Everything's new to them. So we feel like we do need those facilities for training to be able to provide proper orientation for new employees. But the existing employees who already are embedded in the culture for a long time, we think using technology work pretty well with the training. So I do believe that it's a hybrid, but you do need to enhance the technology in order to maintain that sort of connection with training.
Yeah, I think one thing that's coming up in a lot of the questions here connects really with what you're saying, Aaron, is a very great need emerging to be mindful and intentional, looking after everybody, whether they come back into the office a lot, a little, part-time. Good question from Daniela, one of our past panelists, about, you know, is there a risk of unconscious bias if someone's thought to show greater commitment, they're coming back more, or maybe they just need to come back more for their function or for more collaborative activity? Good point. Sure, leaders do need to bear this in mind when thinking about the whole of the workforce. Go on, Aaron.
Well, I think it goes back to what Stefan said, and that is, if you empower your staff to do good work, it kind of doesn't really matter whether you do it at home or you do it in the office. Showing up at the office more than somebody else that isn't necessarily a gauge in your performance level. The gauge in the performance of judging what you actually produce or what you do for work is the results of that, not how it got achieved. Yeah. So I don't really think it's looked at just because I'm more committed coming back into the office, that's a better thing per se. It's results that should be the gauge.
It's a good flag, I guess, but what you're saying is that proper management based on the outputs will cope with that one.
Well, I think, to be honest, the management is actually the danger here, because, well, I think, yeah, because, you know, the team has organized themselves. Right now, they're offsite, they organize themselves, they talk to each other, they chat with each other, they have the tools, the digital tools, how to keep a conversation up. And surely they will do the same. They make sure when they have discussions in the office or a hybrid discussion that is happening, because it's in their interest that they as a team are successful, and they know how to do it. The danger is indeed, if, let's say, management feels, and that's what we see, of course, in the surveys, management tells us they have found it more difficult to lead people in this offsite work, remote working. And if they then say, well, actually, I'm in the office, and then they start having conversation with partial of the team and don't consider including the others, then of course, the others will lose out. They are not informed, or even worse, they make comments. Why aren't the others here? What a pain is that? How difficult is it? You know, then we have lost. So I think the management is absolutely the crucial element here, if this works or not. And the more they leave the team alone, the better. But of course, most likely, actually, what we need to do is really help management to re-educate themselves. How do you lead remotely and hybrid? And I think this is a huge challenge. It's not easy. and they have told us it's not easy, and they need serious help.
And is the data, is the tech and the data part of that help? So we see what's going on all the better?
Of course, it's part of that, but I think it's also personal preference or personal experience. You know, if you are used, you can just walk up to anybody in the office and talk to them and discuss things with them. Then of course it needs a little bit more organization, how to talk to people when they're not literally waiting for you to talk to them. So it's more challenging and it's harder work. But you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's why management is management, because they are capable to deal with more challenges, to deal with more variables, and to deal also with the uncertainty. And otherwise, they shouldn't be there if they find that difficult.
That's a point well made. You're challenging management today, Stefan, and that's very healthy.
Well, I'm also management myself, so I'm also challenging myself all the time. And I also catch myself sometime, you know, finding something difficult, but I just have to say, that's my job. It's not my team's job to look after me. I have to look after them.
Yep, 100%. I'd like to touch on a question from Vincent at Unispace about, really good question, because it brings in different experience here. What are some examples of AI tech that supports workplace design? Glad to draw on Kim, Stefan, Aaron, any of your experiences. Examples of AI that helps us design.
So I can speak. Yeah, I can speak to it from my side. You know, we're starting to see the exploration of linking like the elevator capacities back to the reservation systems, linking back the maybe COVID infection rates across a certain area back to the reservation system. So it's really it's the way I'm starting to see it play out is a linking of information in order to, as I mentioned before, rather than the employee coming in and saying, "Hey, I'd like to sit here today," it's saying, you know, based on your calendar schedule in Outlook and based on your, you know, what we see with our population of seats available, you know, within a certain radius, we would recommend you go here for today. And there's a seat available. And if you press, you know, this button, you'll be registered in that seat from this time to this time, and then it'll release when you go to your meeting, and then it'll become available later, you know, at this time. So it's kind of, it's starting to pull in information and in a way that we haven't done before, to not only better utilize the space we have, but make smarter decisions for the employee from a space and an efficiency perspective from their side as well. So we're getting there. I'm not sure there's one particular solution yet, but that's how I'm seeing it start to play out for the clients that I'm working with.
Thank you, Kim.
I would like to see something even more, something really a simple thing to do where I walk into any conference room with my phone and it allows me literally to know my profile and allow me to make a presentation with almost any system that my client has or somebody else has, that I don't have to call anybody to come in and assist me in making connections to make a presentation. Something I'm asking for something really simple. And at this point, that doesn't exist because there's just too many diverse systems and all of that. And if we're able to do that, we could probably make our presentations or discussions or collaborations like 20% more efficient by virtually being able to project something on using AV efficiently. And that's been a pet peeve of mine.
But I think, Aaron, you're quite right. And I think, you know, it's exactly that. We're so used that we use our phone and our apps and it's intuitive. It's not intuitive, you just give up. And in the real world of workplace design, a lot is not intuitive yet, and there's so much opportunity to bring together the analog and the digital in a beautiful way. And I think to make that whole experience exactly much more intuitive and much more pleasurable, I can focus on what is important to me and not trying to get the analog world and the digital world connected. And I think there is great potential. And if we work better on that, if we get better on harmonizing those two things, I mean, then the workplace is really an amazing place to go to, because it just knows what I want. It just is ready for me when I enter a room. And I think technology is there. We just need to bring it together.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you had one app it's a proximity app where you walked into a building, it didn't take that long to download something simple, and now I don't have to touch anything. I get the doors open, the elevator, I call the button, I can go into open the restroom door, I can walk into any conference room, I'll be able to control everything. And maybe when I leave that proximity, that app disappears, so I don't have billions of apps sitting on my phone every time I walk into a facility. I imagine that can work. I think the technology and the people who develop that thinking can do that.
I wonder if we could just hark back early on. We had a very good question in from Rebecca Kyler, and it's about a bit more of a macro level question. As corporations look to reduce real estate footprint, what's going to happen? There's more than one question around this. Increased amount of vacant office space that could be resulting. Just what do we see the future happening there? Do we think real estate's going to be repurposed? Have we got any early indicators of what's actually going on there?
I do. Go ahead, Kim. Go ahead, Kim.
Go ahead.
No, I do. I think. No, you go ahead, please. I insist.
Sorry, Aaron, I can't see you.
I know.
I'll quickly chime in and then I'll hand it over. Yes, people are thinking about kind of the opportunity to recalibrate their portfolios where they can. There's no question. Most of the conversations we're having is the ability to remove. It's interesting because when we started the conversation, or when the pandemic started, a lot of the conversations were, well, we need to keep our suburban office spaces because that's where people are, and we need to have those available to people to drop into if they don't feel comfortable coming into our metro urban areas, particularly as the commute there may pose safety issues. And now it's changing and a bit, and the conversations are pivoting back to, we're going to keep and maintain our larger spaces in the cities, and we're going to reevaluate our portfolios in maybe tertiary markets that we can get out of. I think this is fluid, but I do believe there is a focus around, where an organization can shed space and still maintain operations normally, and they are certainly doing that. And I think that's answering the question, but maybe I'll just pause there and hand it over in case it needs more.
We're having conversations with clients who are thinking about reducing their footprints in the larger urban areas, but providing, as what Kim was saying, because a lot of the staff are actually in the suburbs, providing satellite touchdown amenity-based spaces. So their footprint might be smaller, but in more places. And that would allow their staff to not have to get on public transportation to get into work and that kind of thing. In regards to what you do with all this real estate, I really don't know. I've actually read a few articles where real estate people are starting to think about converting, and it just has to go work with municipalities for zoning as well, to be able to provide, to be able to allow what was zoned office space to other types of functions, like residential. I think one of the big things in the Bay Area particularly residential is woefully short, and the availability of housing is really quite tight. So that's what I'm hearing. Slightly out of my expertise, but fascinated by that topic.
Well, to be honest, we've been actually advising developers for a long time already, independent of the zoning, to think about exactly that. What's going to happen if there's a shift in the market? Can an office become a living space? Can also living space start shifting from larger to smaller apartments? Because we just, there's micro living, there are all kind of concepts around these days. And I think if you at least invest in a structure, which should hopefully, be valuable for 50 years, you really have to think about how that structure can take up different usage these days, because the world is changing so rapidly, and this pandemic has shown it as well. And the building industry is still very, very slow, of course. And it's also correctly like that. It's, for environmental reasons, we don't want to knock down buildings every 10 years. So we need to think about how we much more can offer a wide range of variety of usage long-term. And I'm sure politics will go with it if actually the infrastructure is ready for it. And I think that is a nice, interesting thought. But if you think about if downtown would have more apartments, people would more live there. There would be actually living much closer. There would be less travel. It just would be good for everybody involved. I think it would be a healthier and a nicer environment altogether. So there's hope maybe that this could even happen based on what we're hearing today.
I'm just muted, Nick.
Sorry, I wonder if we could touch on a few questions around culture just before we're coming close to the hour. If you've enjoyed this session, and I hope everybody has, please join us for our 19th November next panel webinar. Really interesting. I think the answers and the insights towards answers are getting richer and richer as we go through this period. So November 19th is the next one. But there's a few questions around culture and the impact and the loss of feeding good culture, the positivity of culture and team while we're apart. Any remarks around that? There's 2 or 3 questions that I think we'll kind of try and help with around the culture question. Go on, Kim.
I'll just say that it's critical that it's looked at. Most of our engagement work in this space right now is starting with the culture question. What do we need for our employees, and then how do we build around that, as employees are the most important part of an organization. And so I think you can go a number of different ways with it, and some organizations are thinking about it from a training or a leadership perspective. Others are thinking about it from how one works in the office, but it is critical that it becomes a priority and very early on.
Very good. Very, very, very strong point, this. And it's not easily translated into numbers, or, Stefan, it's not easily measured by management, is it?
No, but of course it's crucial. People want to be part of an organization. They want to identify with the culture. And that's why they're there, and that's why they're passionate, hopefully, where they work, and they're passionate together with their colleagues. And I think, indeed, the office has a crucial role to play there. But also, we can actually maintain culture and foster culture also digitally via other tools, via other events. And I think there are amazing examples out there where people do not lose connection with people and to onboard them even in these difficult situations. But of course, all of that is much, much easier in a common space together, where we come together and we can actually be part of that culture and enjoy being part of it.
Yeah, I feel for the new employee coming into a new position today and not able to understand what that culture is. When we have our all-hand meetings, everybody who's, it's an experience it's a continuing experience, because they're bringing their culture of the office home with them, and everybody understands the culture while we're having our Zoom meetings. I'm not so sure that's the same experience for a new hire, even if they were involved in the all-hand Zoom meetings. I don't know what that's like. So I think the physical office does promote culture.
Yeah, I think we see that as really, really important, and ways we still, it feels to me like we're still learning very much. How can we address the cultural question while we're apart? Interesting contribution in the chat of the question and answers. I'm sorry we haven't addressed every single question individually. We've covered a lot of them, but a good point that really coming back into the workspace and being 6 foot or 8 foot apart is not being together. Quite a consideration. We're a minute over time. We respect everyone's diaries, so we'll wrap up. Thanks again to our panel. Thank you, Kim and Stefan and Aaron, for joining us and giving us those great insights. And thanks everybody who's attended. Do attend again on November 19th. We'd love to see everybody back again, and some brilliant questions from the audience. I expect you'd echo that, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly echo what you say. They're very insightful comments from the panel. Very much appreciate them joining us today. And I think the participation and engagement with the audience is a reflection of the topic we've discussed and the insights that have been discussed. So again, thanks everyone for joining us. Trust you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. That's
Thank
very
you.
interesting indeed.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Kim. Bye now.